So Mayi is going to be navigating from quite a few files back and forth now because we have to do a little bit of a recap. Okay, everybody knows what the banks are, the information banks. All right, as I emphasized at the beginning of each of these facilitations, this is actually a facilitation, and the reason there are so many different types of materials, videos, audios, study banks, and slides, is that there are different types of people. They learn different ways. So in education, we call that multi-sensory instruction. So we try to make sure there's something for everybody. Some people learn with paper and seeing, some people learn by seeing, some people learn by hearing. So that's another reason I use my tablet, because that way you can see it and hear it, and we also ask you to say it, because saying has a very profound effect. It's like Shravanam Kirtanam, then you remember Vishnu Smaranam. So that happens with whatever. These are actually research-based strategies. And we use the word strategies. I thought yesterday we were showing you what's the strategy of an artist when he's doing a painting. He works in layers, right? And he works the whole piece. So that's one of the things we do, and we work from general to specific, always keeping the big picture in mind. So what we're going to do is our recap is really fast. This is for orientation, okay? Orientation means I know where I am. If I'm looking for something, I come to Krishna Balaram Mandir, I want to go to a specific place. So this is Bhagavad-Gita, right? We know that. And we know that we are in the 3rd chapter, which is how many slokas yesterday? 43, yeah. And we use some kind of memory trick to lock the information in mind. We also learned that there were 4 main themes that Krishna wants us to know. We should not try to see the Bhagavad-Gita as something abstract for somebody else. Actually, we are conditioned souls, and these instructions are meant for our purification and our edification. So the more we understand it, the more we benefit spiritually, and the more we advance toward the perfectional stage. So Krishna actually is absolute, and his instructions are. So by studying as we are now, he's speaking to us. It's absolute. He's speaking to us. So we should try to understand what is it that he wants of us if we wish to be qualified to be with him in the spiritual world. Right now we're trying to get back. Okay? So there are 4 topics, as we remember, right? And of course the overview would be again, which chapter 3, it's 343. Okay? And these are 4 topics. Now we had a code for those, so you'd know what is it that he wants us to know. So the first topic was, the first one was, do I renounce work, or do I work in devotion? This is the big question Arjuna is asking, right? And that section is from 1 to 9. So we have 9 slokas in which Krishna is making very clear, don't give up your work. And he explains why. He's practical, it's not arbitrary. He makes it very clear, you don't give up your work, I'll give you all the reasons why you can't, and I'll even tell you how. Okay? So that's what Krishna is telling us in these first 9 slokas. Remember, try not to think of the Bhagavad Gita as a chemistry class or a physics class or something. These are the laws laid down by the Lord by which we can elevate ourselves to the perfectional stage. So we have to know the law to follow them. All right, so the next topic, I think I'll turn it this way. The next one was, if you can remember that one was 7 slokas, right? It was short. Okay, and that one was the progression of consciousness from karma kanda, means I want. We're here because we wanted something. We had to take a birth to fulfill a material desire. So we go from karma kanda in this section to karma yoga. In other words, instead of taking something, which means bondage, you're obliged. You take something from anybody, you're bound, right? And you take money from somebody, anything, you're bound. Karma yoga is the opposite. It's the giving mentality. The material is the exploit. I want. What's in it for me? The spiritual mentality is, this is for Krishna. And that attitude is what Krishna assesses in the heart. No one else can judge us. Krishna's sitting there. He knows what our intentions are. So it's up to us to have pure intentions. Okay? The next section, right? This was the big one. 19 was an easy number to remember because that's the foot marks on both Radha and Krishna. Both of them have 19 foot marks. And now this one, what if a person, because in the conditioned state, you have to purify by prescribed duty. Think of prescribed duty as the doctor's prescription. Your body is a statement of a disease, be it male, female, brahmana, kshatriya. So it makes sense. The doctor will not prescribe for a patient who has jaundice the same medicine for the patient who has malaria. So the prescribed duties are in accordance from the Shastras with your psychophysiological nature. Everybody follow that? Okay. So in this section, what about the person who is purified? He doesn't need to do duty to purify. He's already purified through the duty. That's the problem. If you give up your duty, it's like stopping your medicine. You agree? Oh, I'm tired of taking the wife and the kids. I want sannyas. But that, if you're not ready for it, you take away the medicine. If you're purified, okay. But if you're not, it's like stopping the medication, and what happens? The disease comes back. It's a simple analogy, but I think it makes sense. It even says prescribed, prescription. What's your prescription if you're a man, a woman, a sannyasi, brahman, or whatever? But the minute you stop the medication, but what about the person that's pure? He's pure, he's cured. Does he stop his duty? So that's what this section does. Does he stop his duty? He does. The purpose of the work is to purify. So does he need any? Does he have any need? No. He has no need. But he performs his duty because other people will do what he does. That makes sense? If someone's elevated and we look up to that person and that person stops doing his duty and we need to do it, what will we do? We'll copy him. We'll follow in his footsteps. Is that good for us? No. So as this, he performs, he does his duty, right? But he does it to set an example. And the two main personalities mentioned in this large section are King Janak and Krishna. Krishna has come. Does Krishna need to do anything? Not at all. But he knows that the whole world will follow because he's the top authority. So this section is Karma Yoga. Perform your prescribed duty to set the example, even if you don't need to. Janak was a sage. He was very elevated, but he had to train his citizens in how to perform prescribed duties for their advancement. If he gave it up, then what would his citizens do? Right? Everybody understand these three progressions now? First one, don't give up your work. You have to do it. You're going to be forced to do it by your nature. Second one is, I have to do it as a sacrifice, give it to Krishna, right? And that's how I purify. That's why I do it. And the third one is, even I perfect myself, I set the example. And then there are the last three slokas of that section, there are things to beware of. Three things. So we'll talk about those three things. And then the last section, beware of what? Lust and anger. These are in us. It's inherent. We have them. And they are big stumbling blocks in spiritual life. Because now Arjuna is asking, okay, you told me about these other three pitfalls. We'll hear about those in the last section. But what about lust and anger? We're forced sometimes to do what we don't want to do. Where's that coming from? So that's explained. And in this section, Krishna also gives you the advice on how to spiritualize them and how to conquer them. Okay? So everybody got the big picture of this chapter? It's clear now? I like how Prabhupada subtitled this chapter. It's called Karma Yoga, right? Prabhupada entitled, subtitle, he said, Performance of Prescribed Duty in Krishna Consciousness. Perfect. Perfect. Performing your prescribed duty, but how? In Krishna Consciousness. Someone may be performing prescribed duty, but that duty may not be taking him to the perfectional stage. We're part of Krishna, and the more we understand that, we're becoming Krishna conscious. Right now, to what degree we think we're separate from him is the degree to which we are materially infected. Okay? Everybody got the wrap up? All right, now we're going to do one quick exercise. Abai, can you take us to the charts, and please turn to your charts in the back. Especially the charts that have the numbers on them. You'll see this is a study. I don't want to use the word study. People freak out when they say the word. This is a strategy. We're replacing. It's true. People have had horrible experiences in school. I just had an old friend of mine tell me. She said, "Oh, this looked too much like school." But we try not to make this like that. This is facilitation. We do things in such a way that you get the information, but you don't have to go through the torture. Okay, do you all have those charts? Now go to the, not this, yeah, there we go. Not this one, the one before. The slideshow charts. There we go. All right? Very good. Now, we just did the first chart, right? Now we're going to go to this. We just did 9, 7, 19, and 8. Everybody's got that. This is your structure. I have to know where things go, or my mind, I don't get it. I don't get this chapter. 43 slokas, and it doesn't make sense. So now you have compartmentalized the information, and you know the progression. Now we're going to do a strategy that's used a lot. And you'll see how helpful this is in all the other sections on your worksheets here, your exercise sheets. Sorry, I keep slipping into the old language. We see here numbers, and it goes up to 9, and it's yellow. So that first, we call these memory link words. What do we call them? Memory link words. If you're an actor and you forget your lines, somebody's down front and he's going to tell you one word, trigger it, right? I forget a sloka and somebody might say, no, the first one is prakrite priyamanani, right? So it triggers the rest of the information. So here in the yellow one, we have 9 memory link words. All right? So I'm going to say them, and I'm going to ask you to say them loudly for the benefit of you, like kirtan. Number 1 is ghastly. Yes. Number 2 is equivocal. Number 3 is two. Number 4 is abstaining. Number 5 is forced. Number 6 is pretender. Number 7 is sincere. Number 8 is maintain. And number 9 is Vishnu. Now I'm going to ask you, without looking, in your minds, just think, did I remember anybody? Any of them? How about Vishnu? You remember that one? How about ghastly? Yeah. How about pretender? Yeah. How about the word sincere? How about forced? Okay. How about two? It's in 3. Good. Okay. What about maintain? That's a hard one. Maintain. Okay. Very good. Now, what I'm going to do is we're going to do a walk through the book. This is called Stepping Stones, and I'm just going to, in summary form, because we talked about the breakdown. Now this is called flow. You flow. What's the flow? Right? Just as we had the flow of the structure, what's the flow of the slokas? Then I get it. It's a summary flow. All right. Number 1, Arjuna said, hey, this is a ghastly war. Why are you telling me to fight if I'm supposed to be intelligent? Number 2, he says equivocal. That's a big word. It means there are 2 interpretations for this. Which one do you want me to follow? Number 3, then Krishna answers from this point on. Arjuna doesn't say anything until the 4th section. Now Krishna says, I've told you before, there are 2 kinds of people. Some are philosophical, and some work in devotion. Now you can think about yourself. Some people like to study. Some people like to do service. There are two kinds of people. Now Krishna is going to tell you something about why you have to work. You cannot abstain from work and be free from reaction. Even if you sit still, you're breathing, you're killing germs, you cannot be free from reaction in the material energy. It's designed for you to commit sin. The only way you can live in the material energy and not commit sin is by yajna. What is it? Yajna. Anyone who's not performing the prescribed yajna is committing sin. A, B, C. That's it. Serious. You walk, you step, you breathe, you cook, you bathe. Sin. Yajna is your only exemption. The minute you stop yajna, you're accumulating reaction. Now, 5, here's another practical reason. Everybody is forced to act according to the modes that he adopted at birth. If you're a Kshatriya, you're going to fight. If you're a cook, you're going to cook. If you like to deal with money, you're going to deal with money. Right? Everybody agree? Everybody has a package, and he has to act by that package. He will. Now, what about the person who's controlling himself externally, but internally he isn't? What is he called? A pretender. And Prabhupada says that's the biggest cheater. Especially if he's doing it deliberately to attract people or just, be fooled. Biggest cheater. So you want to make sure that your actions and your mind are in line. Better you be number 7. What? Sincere. Follow your position. Do your work in your position. You can elevate. The pretender cannot. He's cheating, and he will be cheated by Krishna. Everybody got that point? See, these are our instructions. This is not just abstract information. This is how we have to conduct ourselves. What about number 8? Everybody has to work. Why? Because you even have to maintain yourself by work. Did everybody have to take a bath this morning? Maybe 2 or more, 3 times, right? You have to eat, you have to cook, you have to clean the pots, you have to clean the floor. You have to work just to maintain. Okay, what about number 9? Vishnu. How do you work? And for whom? Vishnu. The whole idea of yajna is to direct people to Krishna, Vishnu. And by offering your sacrifice to him, you're already linking. You're linking already. Everybody follow that progression? All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go to, let's actually go to the slokas. We're going to try to go to the section now where that is. We'll do them in chunks. All right? So this is how we're going to do. Does everybody make sense with that? Now let's see the 9 slides. Ready? First section. Karma Yoga, topic 1. What's the question? Should I give up my work or? And what's the conclusion? Work and devotion. For whom? Vishnu, Krishna. Okay. And there we did that, okay? Now, let us do the first sloka. And what we do a recitation together. You see the word Ghastly? The Sanskrit's there? Now you should understand it. Arjuna said, Oh, why do you want to engage me in this warfare if you think it's better than fruitive work? That's his question. I'm supposed to be intelligent, but now you're telling me to fight a ghastly war. I don't get it. Number 2, let's go to the next look. The word is what? Equivocal. That equivocal means it could have 2 interpretations. It needs clarification. All right? Now, my intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most for me. All right? He wants it clarified now. He's asking for clarification. Now remember, Krishna said there are how many kinds of people? who want to realize the self. I mean, there are many kinds of people, divine and Jamaniya, but those who try to realize the self, there are two kinds. One tries to realize them. Here you see the universe, material energy, right? Sankhya. The other, there's Tulsi Devi and Bhakti Devi by devotion. Two types of two natures. This is a very important sloka. The purport here is brilliant. The Supreme Personality of God said, O sinless Arjuna, I've already explained that there are two classes of men who try to the self. Some are inclined to understand it by philosophical and others by devotional service. So ask yourself, what do I like better? Do I like to study or do I like to do seva? Actually, both are required according to the purport. One without the other, Prabhupada said, is dangerous. Philosophy without service becomes mental speculation. And service without philosophy could become sentiment and fanaticism. Prabhupada says both are dangerous. Both are dangerous. Okay, what about abstaining from work? I picked a picture from an Aesop fable. The grasshopper fiddles and he doesn't do his work. And the little ant does his work. He's very renounced. But neither of them will get you to Krishna. If you give up your work, that doesn't do anything for you. And even if you're renounced, it doesn't take you to Krishna. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom for reaction. Remember we said you're just breathing and you're killing entities. Nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Okay, let's go to the next slide. What's the word? Forced. Everyone is forced to act according to the qualities he's acquired from the modes of material. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing, not even for a, very loud so they can hear you on the radio. Not even for, you take, this little boy's pretty well behaved, but most kids, they're proof of this, you know, they just fiddling around and here and running all over the temple wild, right, you know, very difficult. We're a little bit more controlled, but the mind, the mind is here, there, everywhere. There's an example. What's the word? This is a famous sloka, 3.6. And how is he defined? One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on sense, certainly deludes himself, and is called a, especially if it's deliberate. If it's deliberate, whoa, look out, Krishna is going to get you. I mean, you're dealing with Krishna all the time. There's no point to try to play games with him. He'll outsmart you. And it's better to do what? Be sincere. There's some brooms there. In the purport, Prabhupada writes, it's better to be a sweeper in the street that's sincere than a pretender. On the other hand, if a person tries to control the active by the mind, begins in Krishna consciousness without, that's important. He is by far, so some pretender is actually, he's practically finished. Be sincere, do your work, stay in your position, and be in Krishna consciousness, and be detached. Okay, got the philosophy now? This is for us. This is not for somebody out in the street and you sell them a book. This is for us. The Gita is really for us. Okay? But we try to encourage other people to take it to be benefited. All right, now there's a bar of soap. Fancy bar of soap. Perform your prescribed duty. For doing so is better than not. Yeah. Just try to give up work for a while. What happens? Your boss fires you. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. How much of the day do all of you spend just cleaning your clothes, cleaning your body, cleaning your room? Unless you have a lot of servants. But Prabhupada didn't like that idea. He didn't want us to be, he called those ravanas, if you have everybody else do it for you. Now the last one, and who's it for? Yes, this is for whom you work and how. This is the conclusion to the first 9 slokas. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. Louder, I think you guys are tired. Who? Vishnu. Yes, has to be performed Otherwise, now here's why. Work causes bondage to this material. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your 5 duties for his. Remember, you have to satisfy him. Don't do it for him and say, ugh. That's called resentment. It's not bhakti. And in that way, you will always remain free from bondage. Yes, do you want to be bound up? We're bound up right now. We're shackled. These bodies are imprisoned cages. You know? All right, did you find that a helpful procedure now? You got the trigger words? Now you see the slides and you have a picture. Think of a bar of soap. Think of a broom. Think of a warfare scene. Think of equivocal. Think of people acting forced to act. That should help you locate these slokas. But most important, locate the instruction. Because that's what we have to live by. All right, now we're going to go to topic 2. What's it called? Karmakanda 2. Yes, now we're elevating our consciousness. We're not in a taking mood, exploiting mood. We're in a giving mood. Ask yourself. I know there's one acharya who said, ask yourself how far you're advancing. If you see somebody, I see you. Is my thought, what can you do for me? Or what can I do for you? That's your measure. Try it. What can you do for me? Or what can I do for you? The first one is exploit. The second one is devote. That's the barometer of your bhakti. All right, now we have 7 words, right? All right, and I like to look at letters too. I see 3 words that start with C. Okay? And I like to look at words that have a heavy emotional. Thief, that's a heavy word. You want to be a thief, anybody here? No. And food, that's a nice word. Just look at the word. How about grains? Not today. We should say something else today. We should say buckwheat or something else. Okay, how about Vedas? Okay, look at the words and try to have an emotional reaction to them. How about the word creation? Right? How about the word cooperate? You like that word? Cooperate with somebody? How about cooperating with Krishna? We didn't, that's why we're here. Now we're trying to. And thief, anybody want to be a thief? Everybody like food? How about grains? Not today. Tomorrow? How about the Vedas? Yeah, we don't have to study them so hard now because Prabhupada's made it easy. And what about cycle? Yeah, sacrifice, sacrifice. So those are pretty easy, aren't they? Pretty easy. All right, so let's go back and just recite them loudly. Go back. Number 10 was what? Loudly. Creation. 11? Cooperation. 12 is the, and 13 is the, and you remember 13 was a key sloka. Remember? Yesterday. 13, 30, and 43. How about grains? Number 14 is what? Grains. 15 is what? And 16 is what? The cycle of sacrifice. And why we have to do that. We're totally dependent. Try to go for a few days without food or without air or water. That's happening on the planet because there's no yajna. That's why there's scarcity. You don't do yajna and your supplies get shut off. You don't recharge your phone and the service stops. Same thing. Your Hare Krishna mantra is writing out your check to pay the bill. Serious. Everybody on the planet who's not chanting Hare Krishna, he's going to be in trouble. All right? Okay, number 1. Ready for the sloka? In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures set forth louder generations of men and along with for Vishnu. So he sent 3 things. He sent demigods, he sent men, and he sent sacrifice. You have to teach people how to do sacrifice so they can get out of here. Along with, okay, and bless them by saying, be thou happy by this yajna. Don't be miserable. You're going to be happy by doing this because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. Right, we're here. You ask everybody what he wants to be. He wants to be happy. That's the whole point of everybody's existence. I want to be happy. They don't know how. Next. What's the word? Cooperation. The demigods, being pleased by, will also please you. Right, it's a cooperative thing. And thus by, between men and prosperity will reign for all. That's how prosperity comes. Okay? Next. You go to these big supermarkets and people are buying lots of food and then they don't offer it, or they eat it right on the spot or something like that. What's that? Is that considered the right thing? No, you're a thief. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied by the performance of will supply all to you. But he who tries to enjoy such without offering them to thee in return is certainly a thief. So Prabhupada used to call most of the countries in the world, he used to call them a society of thieves. Because they're taking supplies, using the resources, this, sand, water, there, yeah, but they're not offering anything back. It's a thief. Okay, food. Now, how do we perform this sacrifice? The devotees of the Lord are from all kinds of, because they eat, which is offered first for others. Krishna always contrasts. Others who prepare for personal sense verily eat only sin. Yeah, they think they're eating apples and oranges and this and that and a kachuri and on the market, but they're eating what? Sin. If you don't offer it to Krishna, it came from him. You're a thief. Okay. Oh, this one we have to say. What do we eat on Ekadasi? Buckwheat or something. Buckwheat. Now this is why we have to perform sacrifice. All living beings subsist on food, except on Ekadasi, right? Which are produced from, now this is the connection. Can you have grains if there's no rain? No. Rains are produced by performance of? Yeah. It's not just automatic. It's coming by the order of the Lord. And yajna is born of what? Prescribed duty. So they're connected. I need food, and it's dependent on rain, and the rain is dependent on sacrifice, and the sacrifice is described as in my yajna. Now the Vedas and the Lord are the next step in the connection. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Lord. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally in acts of sacrifice. So sacrifice is non-different from the Lord. That's explained in chapter 17. Sacrifice is transcendence. Does this help everybody doing it this way? How do you think, Devananda Pandit? Is this okay? Okay. He does a lot of slideshows, so I just want to be sure it's up to your standard. Cycle. Now, we just talked about this cycle of sacrifice, right? My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice, thus established by the Vedas, certainly leads a life full of sin. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses. Such a person lives in vain. Actually, if you took a human body and you're not performing yajna, the Shastras say you shouldn't have lived. You're making it worse. The human form of life is the juncture. Animals don't have to perform sacrifice. The devas can't initiate bhakti. The human is the only form by which you can initiate sacrifice to get out. If you don't do it, better not have lived. And most of the planet's not doing it. That's serious. Why do you think there's so much trouble? Section 3. Everybody still have some energy? Okay, we're in the third section. Now this is a long one. 19 slokas, and I think we'll probably break it by those two slides. We'll do the first green one. This one is Karma Yoga. You're perfected. Do I give up my work? No, I have to, whatever I do is exemplary. Whatever I do, if somebody sees me do something weird, they're going to copy it after a while, especially if you're in a position of authority. That's why leaders are expected to know the scriptures and abide by them for the sake of others. Very heavy responsibility, anybody that has a natural leadership position. All right, now here are, this is 21, this is 19 slokas. I have 10 here and 9 in the next file. Let's just take a look at the words and let's see how emotionally we can react. Emotions help you remember. Well, we see the word janak, right? And we see 2 S's, self and self-realized. Okay? And how about the word exemplary? We want to be exemplary in our thinking and in our conduct and our actions. Planetary and path. These 3 slokas, 22, 23, and 24, are about Krishna. 20 is about Janak, and 21 is famous. It means that everybody follows what a leader does. Famous. Okay? And you get what happens in 25, this is how we interact with others. Let's just say we perfect ourselves and we're learned. We don't disrupt their minds, but you try to engage them in works of devotion. You don't go up to somebody on the street and say, hey, look, you're not doing it right. Even to devotees, because you don't know this position. So basically, you have to follow your own understanding and encourage other people in acts of devotion. So those last 2 slokas indicate how the learned deal with those who are not as advanced. Everybody got the flow? And what are the characteristics of a person who's self-realized? He's satisfied. He's satisfied in himself. He doesn't have any duty to perform. Okay, so flow, and he does his duty. All right? Okay, let's go through the slokas now. We're going to take the next section. Okay, here we go. Self. Now here we have Narada and the 4 Kumaras. They're definitely perfected. But because the pictures are there to help you, get an example. But for one who takes pleasure in the whose human life is one of what? Realization. And who is satisfied in the only. Fully satiated. That means he's satisfied. You can't eat anymore. You're satiated. You're full. He's satisfied. For him, there is no duty. Is only for people who want something. He doesn't want anything. Duty means I have to do something for a result. And I have to suffer for the reaction of the result. Got it? So this person is above that. Self-realized. A self-realized man has no purpose to, in the discharge of his prescribed, nor has he any reason not to such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living. He's free. Advancement has its benefits. It's not as though we're sacrificing benefits. We're getting more. Sacrifice has benefits. Okay, next, duty. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of, one should act as a matter of, for by working without, one attains these. That's your ultimate goal. Now, I chose 2 pictures here. They were not mentioned in the purport. I chose Haridas because he stayed only long enough to convert the lady, and then he walked off. He didn't stay around to be glorified or to get some service. He said, I would have left 3 days ago, but I just wanted to save you. And that's Ranti Dev. What an example of renunciation. He gave up water, food, everything, to even a dog. You never know who's standing at your door. Always think of Ranti Dev. Somebody comes to your door and asks for something. Think of Ranti Dev. I'd better do it. Okay, now here he is, King Janak. He was actually very elevated. Very elevated. And he was the father of who? Sita, father-in-law of Ram. You have to be pretty elevated to have that post. Kings such as attain perfection solely by performance of. So it's not as though you're not going to get perfected by doing this. He's an example of one who did. Therefore, just for the sake of educating the people in, you should perform your work. Follow it? Do your work. Exemplary. Oh, here he is, Krishna. Now he has come to establish religious principles, right? So if he doesn't follow them, what's the idea? No one else will follow them. Whatever action a great man, common men, and whatever standards he sets by acts, all the world pursues. Now here he's showing how he treated his friend Sudama. When they were at school together, they were equals. And when Sudama came to visit him, they and Rukmini are serving Sudama. So sweet. This is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sudama's just a poor Brahmin. He's not any big-time fellow. Okay? Now, planetary systems. O son of Pritha, there is no work prescribed for me within all the three. That means nowhere in the planetary system does he have to do anything. It's all his. Nor am I in want of anything, nor do I have a need to obtain. And yet I am engaged in prescribed duties. Okay? 4, path. For if I ever failed to engage in carefully performing prescribed duties, O Partha, certainly all men would follow my path. You're going to do what Krishna did. Now remember, don't try to lift Govardhan though. You have to remember they're empowered and they have powers you don't have. You have to follow their instruction. Next. Ruination. This is what the whole planet's facing. If I did not perform prescribed, all these worlds would be put to, I would be the cause of creating unwanted, and I would thereby destroy the peace of all living beings. Yes, there he is. He's a wonderful father and a grandfather. And you see what's happening in Kali Yuga. The whole planet is flooded with Varnashankara. Prabhupada writes or speaks in one lecture, he said even the economic theory, I think it's the Cartesian theory, says that if you have too many people who are unwanted, you'll get famine, pestilence, disruption. Even the economic theory tells you that. It makes sense. You have people who are wandering around, they're not educated, they're not cared for, they don't know what to do. You get war, pestilence, hell. Next. Now, how do the learned treat those who are not as advanced? As the ignorant perform their duties with two results, the learned may similarly, but without, for the sake of leading people on the right. Now you have the word path again. Now I chose these two examples. Narada is a perfect preacher. He sees Mrigari, he's killing animals. He says, well, just kill him. Don't half kill him. You know, he didn't totally discourage him right away. He tried to encourage him in gradual advancement. And here you also see Priyavrata. He was another disciple of Narada. And he wanted to be renounced. But for the sake of following the order of Brahma, he took up the post and he was saying, no, you need to take this. Somebody has to do the duty and you're the one. So he had to perform his prescribed duty, but in a detached mood. Okay? And disrupt. Now here, this example, this is Narada preaching. Narada's the big preacher in the Bhagavatam. He's speaking to Vyasadeva. And Vyasadeva actually, Narada appears when Vyasadev's mind is disturbed. I've done all this work, but I don't feel so happy. So Narada suddenly appears. That's true of us too. Krishna will not intervene until we feel the need. He's not going to come and push it down our throats. When either internally or externally we feel a need, somebody will appear to fulfill it. That's the way the universe works. So it's not to what? Disrupt the minds of, attached to fruitive results of prescribed. A learned person should not to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of, he should engage them in all sorts of, for the gradual development of Krishna. And in a way, he's chastising Vyasadeva. He says, you've written all these things, but you haven't glorified the Lord. You're not really helping people get out of birth and death. Okay, next. We're going to go to the next section. Now, this is 27, 28, and up to 35. All right, 27 is the key memory verse. 30 is one of the key thematic verses. Okay? Let's look at some words and see how they strike us emotionally. Emotions are very powerful in remembering a word. Bewildered. Do you like to feel bewildered? Well, we are to some degree. How about absolute? Absolute. Inferior. Lethargy. Do we ever feel that way? Right. And how about injunctions? We should know what Krishna's injunctions are. What happens to those who what? Disregard them. That's we always get the contrast. We get the emphasis of those who do and those who don't. Now here are the last three ones. Take note. These are three things to watch out for. 33, 34, and 35. Can you repress yourself? No. Don't try to. It won't work. What about another stumbling block? Attach too much to attraction or repulsion. Is that good? No, they're opposite sides of the same. Too much repulsion. If I say I'm a brahmachari and I hate women, you're going to be a woman in your next life. And if you're a woman and you say I hate men, you're going to be a man in your next life. That's explained in the 11th canto. This is the story of the wasp. What you meditate on, negatively or positively, becomes your next body. So don't sit and think about that person down the street you hate, because you'll have to take that form in the next life. So attraction and repulsion, you have to watch out for those. Number 5, better to perform your own work, even if it's faulty, than somebody else's. Arjuna wanted to go and be a Brahmin, retire, meditate. Can he do that? He goes to the forest and he starts fighting with the Gandharvas. You cannot be out of your natural behavior. If you're in a dog's body, Prabhupada says you'll be a dog. If you're in a demigod body, you'll be a demigod. Those are the three things to watch out for. You got them? All right, now let's do the slokas. Quickly. Bewildered, famous sloka, and we looked at this the other day, the puppets, that's us. The degree to which a person tells you, I did it, I made this cake, I did this, I did that, is the degree to which he's bewildered. I have a friend who helped us print our little book, 1881. He's a family man, he runs a big company, he's the backbone of a yatra. And whenever I needed something, he'd be there personally at the door, right on time with the goods. And when I'd ever try to praise him, he'd say, I didn't do anything. He's very advanced. And he means it. He said, I didn't do anything. He knows. I didn't do anything. So check yourself the next time you're about to say, I just did it. You're bewildered. The spirit soul, bewildered by the influence of false ego, thinks himself the doer of activities that are actuality carried out by the three modes of material nature. We're just little marionettes, puppets. You know that chart of Krishna, and then the modes, and then the strings. If you identify with the self, you're out of the modes. If you identify with the body, you're under the modes. You think you're doing it, and you're not. Next. Absolute. Now here's how one who acts who's not bewildered. We always get the contrast. One who is in knowledge of the truth, almighty armed, does not engage himself in the sense, knowing well the difference between what? In devotion and work for fruitive results. He won't do that. That's why you have to be in knowledge of Krishna. And who are you? Part of him. If you know you're part of Krishna, self-realization goes with it. You're built into the package. Forgetting Krishna means forgetting yourself. If she forgets her purse, she forgets everything that's in it. Right? You can't remember yourself if you try to divorce yourself from the thing you're part of. It won't work. So that's why we are engaged in the process of self-realization. That means realization of Krishna. Inferior. Now here are cases of people whose work level was initially inferior. Dhruva and King Prachinabhari. Bewildered by the modes of nature, the ignorant fully engage themselves in material and become, but the wise should not. Although these duties are, do the performers lack of, right, they're not as advanced. But that, he was preaching differently to Prachinabhari. But to the 10 Prachetas, he was more open. And here to little boy Dhruva, oh, go home, go home. No, I'm a Kshatriya. I have to be against my stepmother. And then when he got the benediction, oh, I wanted the wrong thing. I prayed for the wrong thing. But Narada didn't try to disrupt him. He tried to send him home, but he saw the kids determined. Next, lethargy, 3:30. We don't want to be that. Therefore, Arjuna, surrendering all your works unto, first point, with knowledge of, second point, without desire for, third point, with no claim to, 4 point, and free from fight. 5-point program. Next, injunctions. I love this picture. I found this picture. It's a chainmail fence, but those birds got free. Those persons who execute their duties according to my, and who follow this teaching faithfully, without envy. That's why we're here. The common denominator of anybody walking around in a body is what? Envy. Not a nice thing. So you have to be faithful and without envy and free. You become free from bondage of fruitive actions. So the little birds now have flown away. I love this picture. Sweet. Okay, next. This is what happens if you don't disregard the scriptures, but those who out of envy, that's why we don't listen out of envy, but do not follow them, are to be considered bereft of all knowledge and befooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Very good. Let's look at the next one. Repression. Can we do it? Is it okay, Gargamuni, if we go over a little bit? Okay, we're trying, but we've got a little to cover. Thank you for being tolerant. Repression. Now this is Sukadev. For 16 years he didn't want to come out. And Krishna had to encourage him to, all right, it's going to be all right. And as soon as he came out of the house, his father's running after him, my son, my son. All right. Even a man of acts according to his own, for everyone follows the nature he has from the three modes. What can accomplish? It doesn't work. He couldn't keep him home. Off he went. Next, stumbling block. Do you ever find there's a few of those in your spiritual life? Something meant to make you fall over? There are principles. This is a very important sloka. There are principles to regulate attachment and, remember, the two sides of the same coin. Pertaining to the senses and their, one should not come under the of such attachment and, because they are stumbling blocks on the path of realization. And I do want to thank Gargamuni for something he doesn't know, but he's always telling us And I know it's my whole philosophy, how you have to have multi-sensory experiences to try to remember the points. You have to see it and hear it and repeat it. So that's why we do this, and we have this interaction going on. And he confirmed that from his studies in Oxford, right? And there are many studies, the studies that say that the more you engage all of your senses, the higher the retention and the benefit for us as well. We're trying to get as much benefit out of what we've been blessed with. All right, next, even if your work is faulty. Now here we have two cases. We have Vishwamitra on the left and Parasuram on the right. They are exceptions because they are empowered. But we can't do that. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed, even though, than another's duties. Destruction in the course of one's own is better than engaging in, for to follow another's path is, and remember we said see prescribed duties like medicine. If you're sick and you have malaria and you decide to take your friend's treatment for jaundice, it might kill you. It doesn't work. Now, let's go back to that slide, that they actually, Vishwamitra, can you go back to Vishwamitra? Vishwamitra was born as a Kshatriya, and he took the role of a Brahmana. And then that was the reverse. Parasuram took birth as a Brahmana, but then later he took the role of a Kshatriya. But those are exceptions. Those are exceptions. Most people can't do that. And if you do it, it's only on emergency level for no more than a year, they say. If you have to step into another position, don't try it for long, because you're not covered. You'll be getting the reaction for taking another post. Okay, our last section, 8 slides, and let's try to... And this is beware of what? Lust and anger. Now remember, we had 3 obstacles in the last 3 slokas. Now Arjuna's asking another one. He's asking, but what about this one? This is even heavier. Beware of 2 things, lust and anger. So let's see what the words are and how they strike an emotional chord. Let's look at the words. Well, I see 2 C's, and I see the word lust and burning. We know that's how it acts. And embryo is not a very nice thing to be in. And curbing and conquer, right? Sitting. In this section, we have 3 analogies with 3 parts. 3 analogies, 3-part analogies. All right, and impelled. So we have impelled, then lust, and then different coverings. Worst is embryo. Lust burns. There are 3 sitting places right within us. Senses, mind, and intelligence. Occupying it. It's like enemies. The enemies are in us. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of the very reason we're here. And everybody in the conditioned state to some degree or other is covered by lust. No exception. Curb that. How do you curb it? And by superior knowledge, right? Understanding. And finally, the final solution, how to conquer it. This is the help that Krishna is giving us in this section. We've all got it. How do we conquer it? All right, let's go through the slokas really fast. Impelled. Now Arjuna asked 2 questions in the beginning. Now at the beginning, he asked 1 question. You've told me about 3 problems. I've got another one. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even as if engaged by force? And that's Shiva chasing Mohini. He couldn't control it. Next, lust. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is only Arjuna, which is born of, now this is where it comes from, contact with the material mode of, and later transformed into wrath. If it's satisfied, it turns into greed. Somebody gave me a cookie, I want 1 more. Somebody gave me a cookie and said no more. If I want one more, I become greedy. If I didn't get one more, I become angry. Lust is pretty dangerous. Either one more or no more, but you're going to react. And later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful of this world. So what's the big enemy in this world? No, is it some country like Pakistan or something? No, man, it's sitting within you. There was a comic strip in America years ago called Pogo, and one of the most famous things he said, "We've met the enemy, and it is us." It's not somebody else. We've met the enemy, and it's famous, that quote. I don't know if you remember it. Okay, next one, embryo. Now here we're going to have the analogies, 3 layers of covering. As fire is covered by smoke, as the mirror is covered by dust, or is the embryo is covered by the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Now Prabhupada compares those, the smoke is compared to the human form because smoke can blow away. The mirror is the animal form. You have to remove the dust. The embryo, completely constricted. Plants, very covered because they exhibited so much lust. They have to be put under so much constraint. You know, the way you see the world going now, you know, people are walking around half naked, and it's a common policy. They're becoming trees in their next body. You even see ads for wedding dresses. Before, wedding dresses were long-sleeved and a veil. Now they look like cocktail outfits. It's just completely, you know, it's like we're preparing to become trees or who knows what. So it's really, there's a lot of work to do out there. Next. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal in the form of lust, which is never and which burns like fire. Now there's someone adding ghee to the fire. Will that put it out? No. Next. Sitting places. 3. The senses, the mind, and the are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living and bewilders him. That's what happens to us. That's why we think we're Prakriti Kriya Manani. Kartaham, I'm the doer. It's lust. Our intelligence is gone. Next. Checkmate. Curb it. Therefore, Arjuna, best of the, in the very beginning, curb this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the, that's the secret. That's why we do sadhana bhakti. At a certain time you eat, at a certain time you bathe, at a certain time you worship the deity, blah, blah, blah. You regulate them, otherwise they just go wild. And slay this destroyer of, yes, who wants his knowledge destroyed? Any sane man wouldn't. And what else? Self-realization. You'll still think you're the body. The more you think you're the body, the more you're bewildered. The degree to which you realize that you're not the body is the degree you are being uncovered by lust. Next. Now we're talking about a hierarchy here. This is explained in the Bhagavatam. The hierarchy is matter, then above that is mind, then intelligence, and then above that, well, you've got matter, and then the senses, and then the mind, and then the intelligence, and then the soul. So in a hierarchy, it means if you've got a problem, the person on the top can solve it the best. Agree? His order comes down. If I go someplace lower, I may not get the final order, right? So here we're getting the instructions to go to the top. The working senses are to dull matter. Mind is higher than the intelligence is higher than the mind, and he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. Now this should tell us what to do. This is our last sloka. Puppets again. This is how we deal with it. Famous sloka, 43, key thematic sloka. Thus, knowing oneself to be, you're transcendental. You don't have a soul, you are a soul. You have a body. That's the difference. People think they have a body and they don't even know if they have a soul. You are a soul that has a body that you don't really need. So you're transcendental to the material senses, mind and almighty armed. One should steady the mind. How? By deliberate spiritual, not material intelligence. And that's called Krishna consciousness. And by spiritual, not material strength. That'll take you the other direction. Conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. Okay. Now we're going to have just a quick little film, and it's short, Gargamuni, very, very short. And the purpose of this is from that Russian movie again, Who Are You Human? And it explains why bhakti is more powerful than karma and gyan. Okay? Please note carefully. Bhakti is more powerful than karma and gyan. And they'll show you karma's connecting with the physical body and gyan connects with the subtle body. But because bhakti is originating from the soul, it is not constricted by the shell. And that's why bhakti alone can cut all the others. And only bhakti. Only bhakti. Okay, you got it? This is us, trapped.
A person immediately creates a new one, which forces him to get more and more new material bodies.
Yes, true.
The animals are almost devoid of free will, thus they only experience the old karma, gradually rising again to the human form of life to regain the freedom of choice. The soul in the animal body does not create a new karma, otherwise it would be forever deprived of the chance to rise above. Thus, the Vedas say that the objective purpose of human life is to achieve a fourth state of consciousness above the three modes of nature. It is pure spiritual consciousness which allows to fulfill the three requirements of the soul: eternity, knowledge, and bliss. This level is achieved due to the fact that having risen to the mode of goodness, a person does not stop at the proper philosophical understanding of life, but begins to engage in practical spiritual activities, meditation, prayer, and service to God. If a person lives in the mode of goodness, he gets the maximum benefit from the material life, since among all material qualities, the mode of goodness is the highest, as well as an accurate perspective of spiritual development. Therefore, this way of life can be called the path of progress. If a person chooses for himself the standard of living in the modes of passion or ignorance, then he cannot get a higher quality of life, even at the material level, and the prospect of spiritual development for him is closed. Just as in ignorance and passion, a person is not able to understand the deep spiritual philosophy and cannot engage in spiritual practice. Therefore, it can be called the path of degradation. In order to help the soul to rise above matter, there are different evolutionary systems in human society. The Vedas call these universal practices by the term yoga, which means relationship with God. In the West, this concept is represented by the term religion. Yoga has several stages. The first stage is karma yoga, which means that a person is connected with God through his activities, karma, or through his physical body. The second stage, jnana yoga or sankhya yoga, means that the connection is through spiritual knowledge or our subtle body. The third stage is Ashtanga Yoga, eightfold yoga, a relationship with God through meditation and breath control. The first 4 stages of this practice are known to us as Hatha Yoga, and 4 higher levels are referred to as Raja Yoga. Bhagavad-Gita proclaims bhakti-yoga as the highest form of yoga, relationship with God through love and devotion of the soul. This practice includes elements of all previous systems, but surpasses them all because it involves our most profound essence, the soul. The rest of the yoga practices involve only the shell of the soul, the physical and subtle body.
Thank you very much. And I hope that you found this helpful today, going through all your slokas. Get a chance to go through the 43 verses of Karma Yoga. And understand too, although for us, Prabhupada's always pointing Karma Yoga to lead to full Krishna consciousness. Throughout the book, Krishna consciousness, Krishna, that's always the objective. So we thank you for coming. Please make sure you get some fruit prasadam. No grains today. And we thank Gargamuni for allowing us to go over a little bit. So sorry. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Great soul there.